Many women find themselves in violent relationships every day.
Oftentimes, victims are too scared or embarrassed to admit to violence that's happening at home.
He was continuing to stalk her and show up at her home.
Sending emergency. Oh, my mommy and daddy are having a fight.
It's tragic that it can be often very hard and very difficult for women to leave those relationships.
You don't understand. He has a history of beating me up. He's been arrested for assaulting me.
According to the police report obtained by Not on Your Side, she yelled, "Oh my God, he's here."
Domestic violence. Domestic violence.
Domestic violence.
A history of domestic violence.
We need to stop being so reactive to violence and start being more proactive.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Warrior Forge podcast. We are here today, myself and Sam. And Sam has an interview that she has to do for a college class. And so she chose me to interview. So we're going to go ahead and record this, so you guys can hear me being interviewed as the CEO of the Warrior Forge Project.
All right. So this is for a psychology intro-level class. Basically, I chose you as my interview because you do deal a lot with the psychology side of things. Not always because you're not because you're a licensed counselor or anything, but because it just kind of comes with being an instructor with martial arts, dealing with all of us who are instructors underneath you in the Warrior Forge Project. I know you've had lots of fun probably dealing with my crazy ass. Just start, it's, how long have you been employed in your field?
I actually started the Warrior Forged Project, was it 2015? So do you want me to go back at all as far as previous employment?
Sure.
To give you a history. So I started in the marketing field, marketing tourism, and I worked at Lake Shasta Caverns, which is an awesome place to go visit when we're allowed to go visit places again. So that's in Shasta County, California. It's about 30 minutes north of Redding. I worked there for 10 years. It was my first real job. I worked for an accountant. I had a couple small jobs. My first job was Dairy Queen. But I always had a passion for dealing with people, working with people in the tourism field when I was young, because I loved houseboating, I loved nature, and I loved how people were on vacation. Of course, that changed a little bit working at a tourist location because people were pretty stressed out on vacation. And it was interesting to deal with people in that situation when, you know, for example, they can't take backpacks in the cave or on the tour because they bump into things, and tours are in small groups, so we don't want them to bump into the cave or each other with their backpacks because they'll turn and they'll hit either each other or they'll hit the formations in the cave. So we didn't allow backpacks, and that was a huge problem. So I learned a lot of stuff there about business management. I ended up being the assistant general manager. So I learned how to do everything there. I was actually a boat captain. I was a tour guide. I rewrote the tour. I was in charge of the HR. I did accounting. All the employees in the gift shop were under me. So I learned a lot of management at my time there. And then I really always had a problem with authority. I always had this tendency to, even though I was kind of politically correct with it, I always argued, and I always backed up my arguments with, you know, real information. And so I won a lot of arguments. So I learned how to really deal with authority and get my way in a lot of situations. So
manipulate people and what you want them to do. Hey, I think you should be an instructor. I don't know. Yeah, you should be an instructor.
So I learned how to manipulate, yes. In the best ways.
In a nice way.
So I ended up really not wanting to work for anyone. And when I parted ways with that position, I worked for a houseboat company up there on the lake, and did some management there. And then I had the opportunity to write a magazine and publish a magazine called 101 Things to Do. And that was amazingly fun because I got to travel, write, get marketing. I did marketing for that. So I put the magazine together, got some like really creative marketing skills, advertising skills honed inside that job, which was an amazing, fun job. And I got to the taste of working for myself with that job. So I never wanted to be employed again at that point because I was able to work from home. I was able to have my own schedule, and I was just able to go enjoy nature and do what I loved. Now, during this time, I ended up going through a divorce. I got remarried. And I had my oldest daughter, which everybody's heard this, started having some social issues in school. And her counselor said we should take her to martial arts to learn some discipline because she had severe ADHD and she needed just to hone that energy that she had, that extra energy. So I always wanted to do martial arts. It was kind of a fantasy thing of mine. Like, I thought that to be good at martial arts, you always had to start as a kid, and had that kind of weird misconception, you know. And I had always had a issue with my body image and what I could and couldn't do. And I was learning at the time, you know, going through divorce and then remarrying, that I could actually do whatever I wanted to do. And that, coupled with being able to work kind of for myself at that time, when I started doing martial arts, I just was like, okay, this is where it's at. This is what I've been missing my entire life. I had never been able to do sports as a kid or as an adult, and martial arts just was the perfect fit for everything I needed in my life. For my kids, for myself, for everything around me, is what martial arts is what I needed. So I started working with the women in martial arts, and just had this passion for the self-worth that it brought. everybody that encountered it, especially women. And so I started thinking, well, I could definitely do this. I could definitely teach women self-defense. And it doesn't matter, somebody told me along the way, it doesn't really matter how much or how little you know more than the mom sitting on the couch that wants to know self-defense, wants to learn it. So even though you only have a couple years at that time, you still can teach women how to defend themselves. So that's when I came up with the Warrior Forge project. My son Nathan helped me with the name. We wanted something that wasn't 100% for women. We wanted it to be for everyone, for kids, for families, for men too. And so we didn't want it to be something very feminine, so that it was only for women, because everybody needs to learn to defend themselves. So it needs to be for everyone. And he kind of opened my eyes to that aspect, and I'm so glad that I was talking to him about it when we were developing the project. So that was in 2015. And since then, of course, I moved to Roseville and came across some amazing women that ended up being my team, and we've just kind of gone from there. It became a nonprofit in 2017, so we have been a corporation, a nonprofit corporation, 501c3, for 3 years now.
Has it been 3 years already?
Yes.
Oh my God!
Over 3 years. 3 years and 3 months.
Oh yeah! Oh my God! Wow. How long have I been? Sorry, I just had like a weird moment of like, I've been doing martial arts for over 3 years now. Whoa.
Time goes by super fast.
What? Okay. So you've been with the Warrior Forge project since 2015. Like, I mean, the Worth, we've talked about Worth on here a bit. We've done like White Belt Wednesday, and there was another series we did where we talked to various people. Like, I know, like Amy's story, every once in a while I'll be listening through the podcast again, I'll hear Amy's story and I'll start crying because I'm a big soft baby. That teaching the worthness, I think it's helped me personally, but also kind of getting to help develop people more. Like, as someone who's also instructing with the Warrior Forge project, like, I see some of my students, and I remember the first day they walked in, they were like soft and quiet, and now I have a couple monsters, and it's, I don't know, it's like been a really cool feeling.
Yeah, it's weird to like remember how you were just a few years ago. Like, I'm sure it is for you too, but I remember before martial arts, I was clumsy. I ran into things all the time. I didn't know what was inside. You know what I mean?
I didn't know how to fall.
You
Still don't.
Didn't know. You definitely didn't know how to fall. But it is amazing to watch that process in females specifically, also children, to see somebody that is truly timid and doesn't know how strong they are, emotionally and physically.
Oh man.
And then when they learn it.
And with the littles, I kind of want them to see, like, you can hit an adult in the face, and it's maybe not going to put me on the ground, but it's going to faze me.
It's gonna surprise you for a minute where they can run away.
It's amazing to get to kind of see that development. What are your major duties and responsibilities with the Warrior Forge project? What do you spend your time doing for the Warrior Forge project? Everything.
Yeah, everything. So day to day, I check email and social media just to make sure there's no messages that need to be answered on a normal day-to-day basis without being stuck inside and under restrictions of the stay-at-home order. I would check on all the upcoming seminars to make sure there's no messages regarding this upcoming seminars, and make sure that I'm on top of how many people are going to be attending, making sure that the merchandising is in order, as well as the advertising for each seminar. So we usually start advertising in the area of the seminar location about 3 weeks before that seminar. So I'm keeping an eye on the advertising, creating the advertising. So every host gets pretty much an advertising package. So we have the banner ad, and we have all the social media ads. We have a video, we have a poster. So I create that package and I send a copy of that package to whoever the host is so that they can do their own advertising and advertise to their people. So that's I spend a lot of time doing that. I also try to keep in contact with the instructors that we have that are certified with the Warrior Forge Project. So I have several chats. Sometimes, people don't like being on group chats. So if they're not on the group chats, I try to remember to, keep in contact with them personally so that we are keeping all those contacts fresh. So everybody stays up to date. Not everybody has social media, so making sure that I keep those, in contact with everyone that's under us for instructors. Making sure that their classes are going well, their workshops are going well, and they don't need anything from me for the workshops, and just making sure that curriculum is being followed. We're also constantly trying to figure out when our next instructor training is. So I'm organizing instructor training and making sure that we get the funds we need, the fundraising as well. So making sure people pay if there's costs involved in the instructor training. That takes a lot of organizing, and that's pretty much the base of it. I keep in contact with the board on a weekly basis. We have a board meeting. So the board consists of everybody that deals with finances, advertising, HR things, and we talk about, what we should do in the future, how things are going now, what programs we want to implement. During the whole stay-at-home order for COVID, we have been talking a lot about how, what we want to do. Like, for example, we've been trying to put out one podcast a week, one virtual workout challenge a week, and other things that we could possibly be doing if this lasts longer than we want it to, which it obviously already has, but really trying to go on with business and develop things so that we can be of help to people as they're staying at home, and also just be, stay relevant and keep ourselves busy in the meantime while we're getting ready to come back, and then there's going to be that whole, okay, how do we come back? When do we start doing seminars again and all that? So there's a lot to think about, a lot to do. So we definitely stay with the same schedule. We still have weekly board meetings, and besides that, training takes a lot of my time. And this is, it's one of the main reasons why I love the idea of the Warrior Forge Project for me and for all the instructors involved, is because it is mandatory to train. Being a self-defense instructor, a martial arts instructor, requires you to stay up with your training, psychological training and physical training, so that our instructors are all up to date with what's going on in human trafficking and what's going on with crime rates and everything, what's going on in the media. So it's in reading, books that come out, as well as books that are bestsellers about, the gift of fear and different crime books and all that stuff. So it's fun to actually. That's the best part. The best part is the physical training that I get to do and call it work. So besides learning jiu-jitsu, learning Krav Maga, learning, Muay Thai, going to little camps that we go to, learning Filipino martial arts, just, so we have that side of things, and being open to learning other arts as well, in little mini camps. And it just makes us better all around as instructors, but it's also part of the job.
I love that.
There's a long answer. Because there's a lot to do on a daily basis. And that's why I run out of time for, finding grants and finding funding and all that, because there's a lot to do in the day-to-day.
Like, I honestly have a hard time. I see you doing all this stuff for the project. I'm like, I want to do more, but I'm taking 17 units. So...
You gotta get done with your schooling first.
Okay. You said staying relevant. I wanted to bring up how much social media.
How much?
You do social media. You do social media management as well,
mm-hmm.
and you're posting. I don't want to call them memes, but the motivational posters and things on the Warrior Forge stuff, and we'll do the tips.
It's hard because I don't post. I feel like I don't post on the Warrior Forge project pages enough, and it's hard to find somebody that will do it or add to it. So I find myself on my own page, my personal page, more than anything. And I have more followers on that, so I'm trying to find that balance of trying to pull people from my personal page to the Warrior Forge project and intertwining them. But kind of coming up with right now different ways to pull people to our social media, whether it be with the workouts and some challenges, or doing IG Live, or different things like that. But everything takes time, so it's really I don't spend a lot of time on social media for the Warrior Forge project. I try to just do what's necessary as far as advertising for events, and coming up with new ways to engage.
What's a typical day in the life of Stacey? We get you doing this stuff throughout the day, but you also have family going on, right? You also have your dogs. You also have a house.
Yeah.
Those are your duties and responsibilities that you were describing of what you're doing for the Warrior Forge project. But on your typical day, you get up and you go to.
And this is kind of leading into the next podcast we want to do, because we were talking about habit stacking. So things have kind of changed, and I was talking to Esther. She's on our board about this, and I'm used to going to jiu-jitsu twice a day at least, and that's a lot of jiu-jitsu. So I'm totally addicted, and I realized that. And over the last 5 weeks of the stay-at-home order, I was kind of in a withdrawal stage, where a denial stage, where I was just not really angry about not doing jiu-jitsu, but I'm bored with doing home workouts, although I'm forcing myself to do it. I'm bored with running, although I'm forcing myself to do it. And kind of like I know I should be doing, some Muay Thai and some shadow boxing, stuff like that. Things that I can do on my own, but I'm looking at the equipment in my home gym and I'm just like, but I want to do jiu-jitsu. So actually this week, it was the first week that I started doing some of that stuff. I started doing some shadow boxing. I started doing some Muay Thai bag work, and I felt great about it. And so I think when things go back to normal, I might even do a little bit less jiu-jitsu because I've added things to my my schedule, my habit forming that I really enjoy doing now. So basically my day is this. I wake up, I make my bed, and we've all talked about that whole making your bed video and book. So
So good.
I make my bed, brush my teeth, get dressed, dressed in my workout clothes. I go downstairs and I drink a whole, 33 point something ounces of water. 33.8 ounces of water, which is 1 liter. I drink a whole liter of water while I look at my coffee and don't touch it. I don't start drinking my coffee because I know that if I start drinking my coffee, I'll be kind of stalemate and want to linger and procrastinate on my run. So I don't drink the coffee. I just drink the water. I put the collars on the dogs, and we go for our morning run. That's about... I'm trying to get to 3 miles with that. I don't want to do it. I used to run 5K all the time, like every morning. That was my normal run when I was running, but I don't want to. I want to build up to it slow because I have problems running. Physical problems because I get calf tears real easy. So I'm trying to build up real slow. So I've been doing about 2.5 miles, 2 to 2.5 miles with the dogs every morning. And so I do that. It takes me, about 40 minutes with stops for the dogs and to move out of the way for other people to pass and stuff like that. So, and it's a dirt path, so I kind of run through some of the hills and stuff off the track. And then we get home and the dogs are happy because they went on their run. So then I'm allowed to have my coffee. So it's water, run, coffee, and then I start work. So I've been sitting down to start work on all that stuff that I mentioned before in the other question. And I do that until around 2 o'clock. And in that time, I try to get up and do mini workouts. So I'll work for like an hour, hour and a half, and then I'll get up and I'll work out for like 15 minutes. And it'll be just random workouts, whether it's one of the challenges that we've been doing, posting, or shadow boxing or kickboxing, whatever. So I'll do that. I'll do like 15-minute breaks in between my working time, between that would be like 9 to 2. And then after that, I'm hungry. So I pretty much do intermittent fasting. I drink water and coffee all morning, and then I cook. So I've been on a vegan kick, not necessarily for any health reasons, but because I like it. I did keto and paleo for years, and I don't know if I just got sick of meat, but I just have no craving for it. So if I need more protein, I'll have like vegan protein or that I add to stuff, or I'll have egg whites or fish. But I've been cooking more vegan and I love it. And so I'll eat, my eating windows between 2 and 5. So I'll cook and I'll eat and I'll just kind of chill with the dogs and the kids. And I have older kids, so it's like really easy for me as far as stay at home goes. They kind of complain about not seeing friends, but I don't have to really babysit them all day long, so it's easy. And then John gets home from work. He is an essential employee. He works construction, so and he does infrastructure. So he fixes levees and does environmental construction as well. So he gets home around 5-ish, and then I just kind of chill with him. Evenings have always been important to him, so that's why I don't usually do jiu-jitsu or any other martial art in the evenings, because it's kind of his time. That's about it. So we'll, for our time, we'll either go check on our property that's in the hills that we want to build on. We'll check that out, or we love playing video games. So that's my little nerdy secret.
It's not a secret. Everyone likes video games, and if they don't, they're a liar.
So that's about it. That's about my day.
I mean, like, you basically just described a Pomodoro method, which I will talk about in the next podcast when we're talking about habit stacking. Oh, I'm so excited. It's all like psychology and habit building. It's so good. All right. What do you like most about your job? No one bossing you around?
Yeah, I love working for myself. I love helping people become what they like more. For example, I guess I could use you since we're talking. You came in when you're going through a rough patch in your first year. It's your first year of college, right? When you first started?
I went through a breakup too.
Yeah, you were having a rough time, and just to see you develop between then and now with Warrior Forge Project, helping, with that path. I think that's really my favorite part of what we do with the Warrior Forge Project, is really seeing people grow and become what they want, kind of giving people that freedom of, yes, you can do this. That's probably my favorite part, along with training and competing.
Okay. And then, of course, the awful question, what do you like least about working at this job?
It doesn't pay any money. It's very, it's not, working for a nonprofit and creating a nonprofit is everybody's volunteers, especially at first. It's a lot of hard work for no money. And yes, it can make money. It can get enough funds to pay employees. It's a lot of work, and you don't make any money from it. So it's probably the biggest, the hardest thing to convince people to help you. It's all passion driven. It's 100% passion driven.
What is your original background?
Original?
Educational?
Oh. Yeah, it's like it keeps breaking up right when you say that word. What is my educational background?
Southern girl. Yep.
Okay. No, I don't. I never went to college. So I actually had my oldest when I was 17 years old and went right to work. So basically my educational background is working, is physical. Like, I went to work right after I had him so that I could make an income, and so did my ex. And so I started working for the caverns when I was 18. And that was, you heard that whole history. So really I don't have any formal education, but I did, go through training as far as all of the self-defense stuff, the martial arts training, and then employment training. So real life education.
Experiential.
Yeah.
Like, you just...
John and I talk about that all the time because we got, in fights with our exes a lot over that aspect of things, because both of our exes had formal education and neither one of them did anything with it. And me and John both have been very successful without that formal education. So it is what it is. I don't know if you don't want to... I get upset with people when they call it luck, because it wasn't really luck. It was a lot of hard work, and we just started working from day one. I was 17 when I had a baby. He was 17 when he left for the military, and here we are today.
I mean, I think some jobs definitely you have to have an education. Like,
You do. It depends on the career.
If you're going to be a doctor,
A lawyer, a psychologist.
not every job requires like a full-blown regular education. You can learn from experience. So I do get frustrated because, like, initially I didn't go to trade school, but I got an associate's in drafting. It's a 2-year degree, not a 4-year. I could make a living in that if I wanted to, but I want to continue my education so I can become an officer in the Army. But that's not for everyone, and going to trade school or getting a 2-year degree is what some people need to or want to do, or even no degree or no college at all. It all varies person to person. So
on what you want to do.
Exactly. We kind of already went over how you decided to enter the field. I would say you were told by someone that you can teach anyone, including that mom who sits on the couch, because you have more experience than them, and you just love that drive of you want to teach and you want to help people. It naturally evolved for me as far as, being in martial arts, and then just kind of taking the teacher, the leader role within the first year of learning martial arts. I was helping to teach kids. I was helping to teach other new people that came in. And that was just, the passion of mine was to get more girls. I wanted more girls to train with. So any women that came in that were interested in the training, I just took them under my wing and said, yes, you can do this, and got them all fired up and excited about it. And it was just a natural thing, teaching them. Yep. How did you get your current job?
I think we pretty much covered that too. I gave it to myself. I literally gave it to myself. So we developed the nonprofit, and I was obviously the choice for CEO and president of the board, because that's was my baby. So
your vision.
Yep.
Oh my god, I'm sorry, there's so many freaking questions. Okay, how would someone who wants an entry-level job in your occupation locate one?
Basically, we pick up people from seminars. We talk to people through email and that saw us on the website and just are interested in what we do, or just by contact. We meet a lot of people doing what we do in jiu-jitsu and competing and all that stuff. So basically, people contact us, or they just run into us as far as like a seminar goes. We talk to people after the seminars. They have the opportunity opportunity to come up and talk to us. So if they're interested in being an instructor, we just give them that information. So we tell them, we have instructor training and they can go to that instructor training. If they're a good fit, morally, ethically, and they're a hard worker, typically they can work to be an instructor, get that certification, and then later on down the road, they have the opportunity to be on the board or be a lead of a committee or just be more involved as a volunteer with the project. So it's fairly easy if they want to do the work.
It's all about putting in that work. It's a typical salary. We already talked about that. Benefits. We get to teach people martial arts.
Yes. The nonprofit's actually set up to where when we have enough funding and grants with the Warrior Forge project, we pay for the training. We try to pay most of the training costs right now anyway, but if we have we raise the money for instructor training, for the cost of running seminars. Of course, 100% of proceeds all goes into the program, but that's the main costs are advertising, running the seminars, travel to the seminars, and then training instructors. So the benefits would be, getting that paid for the instructor training, as well as we have it set up and written that if you're an instructor and you want to give workshops at your current, wherever you currently live, or you do our free workshops, monthly, that we pay for your training. So as soon as we have, the funding set aside for that, we would like to pay for your training. So basically, like Sam, how you are doing workshops in Boise, we would pay for your jiu-jitsu because you're giving that volunteer time. So it is set up to have benefits such as that. So that's a huge benefit, I think.
Yeah. I mean, it meant like health insurance, retirement, 401k.
That all comes down the line when we have more funding, of course.
Yeah. How does one continue to advance in this occupation? Train more.
Yeah, with everything, when martial arts are involved, it's just more training. The more training you have, the more you are able to do this kind of work.
What are some of the skills I should aim to get in order to succeed in your career someday? So if I were to become you, what do I need to build?
I think you're on the right track and anybody that would be in the same position would be, you're doing the schooling, you're doing training, you're reading and doing your research. So you're getting both the physical and the psychological training you need to be able to be an instructor and teach self-defense. The other things that are involved would be the managerial aspect. So I attribute that to all my, my experience in the real world, underemployed jobs, managing things. So I had that experience with accounting. I had the experience with marketing. I had the experience with managing people. So I think that all that contributed to being a good CEO.
Hopefully I get some of that with the Army.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, leadership skills are developed through experience and being somebody that can be led as well as lead is something that has to be learned, through time and experience.
Oh, these are awesome. Can you recommend any undergraduate courses that would be helpful to someone in this field? I know Boise State has an awesome nonprofit certification program, which I'm looking to after I get my bachelor's.
Nice.
just so I can get more knowledge.
I would say like criminal justice type classes would also be good. Criminal law,
psychology,
behavioral sciences. I think if I in another life, I would totally do behavioral sciences and criminal justice.
I'd be scared to see you as a cop. I'd be scared.
It really depends on what you're interested in and where you want to take that, you know.
If you were choosing a career or occupation over again, would you do anything differently?
No.
No.
No, I feel like I'm one of those people that everything happens for a reason, and all the lessons that you've learned throughout your life are, you know, happened for a reason and made you who you are today. So I wouldn't change a thing.
I'll have moments where I'll be like, man, I probably shouldn't have done that. But then I'll think about, like, if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't have started martial arts. So I probably wouldn't have met you, and I wouldn't have become a part of this. And, like, I'll have that kind of thing happen every once in a while. I'm like, well, that did suck. And it did cost me a lot of money, or any of the other bajillion experiences I think about. I'll be like, now, like, it was meant to happen in this order.
Yeah.
Oh, I love this question. And I think I know the answer, but I'm not sure. If you had to give any resource, a book, a website, for anyone who wants to enter this career field, what book would you recommend?
I'd probably have to say The Gift of Fear, because so many of our answers and so much of our focus is on topics from that book and how to handle things. So it's the number one book that we revolve our seminars and our teachings around for, you know, basic self-defense and violence prevention. So
I for half a second was like, she's gonna say Gift of Fear. Well, she might have something else. She reads a lot.
Yeah, I read a lot, and you know what's funny is I don't read a lot compared to some of my other friends and mentors, and one person in particular, Mr. Ryan Spink, who is our Sifu, and teaches us Krav Maga. He reads all the time, and he reads so many books. And one thing he told me, I was reading a lot of self-help style books, like How to Be a Badass. Like, that's one of my favorite ones that's recent. But he kind of ruined those books for me, because he said, you know, once you read so many of those, they're all the same. They're all the same. It's the same book. It's the same book no matter what book it is or what cover they slap on it or what that cuss word they put on the front. You know, they're all the same book. And the book I read after that, I don't even remember what it was, but I was like, crap, he just ruined every self-help book for me. And he's right. And now all I have to do is read the first paragraph of any book or the little thing on the side, and I can tell if I've read that book or not.
I think I remember hearing his talk on self-help books, because I think it was a night at the pull-up bar. But I'm pretty sure I've heard that.
Probably, yeah. So I stick to, you know, somebody sent me a list of novels that is like, name your 10 favorite novels or something. And I said, you know, the last time I've read a fiction book was probably Inferno by Dan Brown. And that was and it was when that book came out. So I think that's the last fiction book I read. And since then, it's always been nonfiction. Being in this field and doing what we do, I'm constantly trying to catch up with my nonfiction. So.
Yeah. I can't think of, I think one of the last fiction books I read think I reread Harry Potter.
Yeah, those are fun. They're so fun. They're like they're comfort, like the soul comforting, like comfort food, you know. But
hey, I need you to read Ask Me. Okay. Just has to read Harry Potter after.
I just feel like, you know, I don't want to waste. I can force myself to sit down and enjoy a good fiction book or a novel, and I'll get stuck on it and want to finish it in one night. Like, I'll stay up all night and read it. But I get so much more out of the nonfiction reading that we do in our recommended lists and our mandatory lists. And it makes you a better person. And I think that's, you know, that's where we enjoy and understand what martial arts, like jiu-jitsu, for example, does for us. Like, we're constantly learning. So if you take running, or you take a HIIT workout, or you take CrossFit on one hand, and then you take jiu-jitsu or another martial art on the other hand, you're not only doing exercise, you're learning a life skill that will make you better forever. And so that's kind of the difference between fiction and nonfiction books for me right now. Is like, I know that this book over here will make me a better person. And this book over here is just like watching a movie.
Well, like when I was reading on combat, I finally finished it.
One of my favorites. That's one of my favorites.
But there was like a couple points in the book where it was like, I totally had an epiphany about experiences I've had in my life, and I was just like, oh, that totally makes sense, because like in that book they talk about the physiology of like violence and what happens when you get into a fight, and I'm just like, oh shit, like that totally makes sense, like why certain things have occurred, because like physiologically. Okay, there's a couple more, but I think I can pretty much fill in from other things I've said. Do you think it matters what major someone should have to get a job working in what you do?
No. It can just be passion driven. I think, you know, it depends on what direction you want to take it. You know, if you really want to be, a lot of people that do similar things to what the Warrior Forge project does do get a psychologist style degree. A degree in psychology, because most of the nonprofits that do things that are similar to what we do, you know, after the fact, what's the word I'm thinking of? Victims, victims of violence, victims, you know, people that have, are recovering from being basically abuse recovery, you know, human trafficking, people that have been in human trafficking, people that have been homeless, all those things. So a lot of people that are in the field that we're basically in have psychology degrees. Another one is criminology. So you got all of the criminology, the law enforcement side of things. So it really depends on what your interest is. If it's purely to teach self-defense, you can just do martial arts. You know, we have, it's kind of a 3-part thing. So you either have people that have a background in military and law enforcement. You have people with a background in martial arts, and you have people in the background of psychology. So those 3 fields is what makes up what does this kind of nonprofit.
Okay, that's it.
Woo!
I'm supposed to send you a handwritten thank you note.
You better send it. I'm going to post it.
I will.
All right, we're going to we'll finish up this podcast. We'll probably be doing another one here shortly, or another one this week. for all of you out there. I hope that you weren't bored to death of this interview.
This one might not get posted. I'm sorry, it was so boring. I looked at the questions, but
you might want to know. You might want to know what it takes to be involved with the Warrior Forge project. So it's good. It's all good. All right. Until next time, be your own hero.
be Warrior Forged.
The Warrior Forge project is currently looking for podcast sponsors. If you'd like to be mentioned before and during each podcast, please email us at warriorforged@gmail.com or through our website or social media platforms. You can find us at warriorforgeproject.com or find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Tumblr, or YouTube. The Warrior Forge Project is a 501c3 nonprofit corporation, and all of its team members are volunteers. All sponsorships and donations are greatly appreciated, and 100% of sponsorships and donations go straight into program development to travel and teach women, children, and families mental and physical self-defense.